I used to always be so in my head. I could never get out of my head enough to even realize 90 minutes had went by without, I don't know if you lived in your head too, but that's the kind of ADHD I got diagnosed with, was the inattentive. And it's just constantly a thought would come up and I would just think this, and then it goes to this, and then it goes to this, and then it goes to this. And that still happens, but not as wild now as it used to. But with alcohol, it didn't even get a chance to happen. Because alcohol is not only numbing it, it was killing the brain cells.
Oh, yeah.
Versus like regrowth.
Yeah, I know. I was shocked when I've seen MRI scans where it shrinks your brain. Literally shrinks it. So, but yeah, I live very much in my head. And I think, especially being an entrepreneur and having an online business, it never sleeps. Like people constantly, between especially social media and on the website and email and everything, it is impossible for me not to feel like I could be working 24/7. And I love what I do and I love my customers. So I want to be doing those things, but sometimes you just need a break and need to shut it off and need to have some balance. So like me and Adam haven't gotten through like a single TV show. I know you don't watch TV, but like
I don't watch a lot. I give my husband 1 to 2 hours mutual TV a week because he's a huge TV guy.
Yeah.
Whereas I need like my full attention span, and I just don't have that much to give for attention. Mine's so limited. So I give him 1 to 2 hours. So I do have some shows. So when we watch a show, it's going to be good.
Yeah. Well, I watch a little bit more, but when I sit down though, we can't even get through a whole one without pausing and then talking about the business or looking on my social media or doing this. And it's become such a pattern that like taking a gummy and being able to just calm all the thoughts and anxiety and lists going on in my head and feeling not guilty about just like relaxing and having some me time. And so that's become my new routine of just like having my little dose. But again, going back to like for the newbies, don't compare yourself to other people, what they're taking.
And it's not like they taught us drinking was, y'all. You don't win by out drinking your counterpart. Like getting so high, you're higher than the other person. That's not fun. Like you're gonna find, if you start low and slow, you'll start feeling where your good balance is. Whereas if you go so hard to begin with, then all you know is this like potentially crazy out of body, like very, very uncomfortable high.
Yeah.
And then you've got to work backwards. And plus you're spending more money for up here.
So
if you can do this, that's the key. That's what this isn't a race. This isn't to sell you as much as humanly possible and get you addicted. This is to bring you quality, good products that make you feel better. And by benefit, you don't sometimes have to spend as much by going. And with alcohol, you're definitely not going and getting addicted.
Yeah, with alcohol, I always felt like I had to keep up with Adam. He has a higher tolerance. And so, but it was like a drink for drink. When we were doing mixed drinks, especially, it was like, oh, I'm going to make another. And then when he would want another one, he'd just be like, finish up so I can make us both freshen us both up. And so then I would be like pounding down one to be like, okay. And then I would keep up with him and I would regret it. And so I've become.
And meanwhile, our female bodies can't even process it. Like, so not only are we matching them liquid for liquid, it's like, theirs is 100%, ours is 130%. Like it attacks your body because of our chemical makeup way differently than it's attacking theirs.
Oh yeah, for sure. So yeah, I've become, and it's funny because Adam too, he's more of a smoker and he's very, very sensitive to like gummies, any kind of treats. He can only, if he takes more than like 5 milligrams, he does not have a good experience. And that's another like caution because we've had occasionally people, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to call 911. I took too much. My heart's racing. Like I'm going to die. And I'm like, no, just calm down. Nothing bad is going to happen. Like, I promise you, you just have to wait it out. And that's the other thing. You can always take more, but like, you can't undo it. Once you ingest, it's like, and then it's done. But the good news is, good and bad, it's like after about 4 hours, like, you're back to normal. So,
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh so hard, but a really good friend of ours is an ER doctor and knows you know, what I'm doing and being vocal about it and this and that, and always says, I would give anything to be able to do that instead of have to have a drink. But then he talks about the patients that he sees that come in that have the exact feelings that you just described. Like, I've got to call 911. That, like, where you just, because it's a new feeling, you're actually physically okay, but we understand you're calling 911 because this is abnormal to you. But he goes, I always just tell him, dude, get an Uber, pick up a bucket of Popeyes, put on your favorite music, and you will be fine in a few hours. And he's like, it's much better than all the people coming in from drunk driving accidents that I don't get to say anything to.
Or what?
And every time he says that, it just gives me like chills, you know?
Yeah.
But one's legal and one's not, but that's for another life session. That is for another life session.
I've always been really curious. I've never asked you about this. So I know your husband is in, like, he owns, you know, he has bars and like is in the alcohol industry. Is that ever a point of contention with, I mean, your views on alcohol and educating people on the dangers? I've been super curious about that.
Yes, that is a great question. I actually like this. I should talk about it more. It doesn't for a couple reasons. So my husband's not even a huge drinker. Like, I outdrink him. He's either I don't drink at all. Like, if we're at home, he'll never just have a drink unless we're having a party and people over. But if he's like going out, which, you know, he used to do a lot in his 20s and 30s, but now that we have 3 kids, we don't go out very much. But if he's going out, that means it is Bud Lights and Bud Lights only are getting thrown back in Fireball shots. And he is gone to the world for the night.
Aren't Fireballs, is it a myth? I read once that it was banned in other countries, the Fireball drink.
I think so. Like, it's
antifreeze
or something that's in it. I don't know. So when you were saying you used to keep up with Adam, when we started dating, I used to try to keep up with him. And that was like the dumbest thing I ever did. Because if it's just me drinking wine, I can outdrink him. But beer and anywho. But then in terms of selling them, my theory on this is I'm not against the thing that I'm so upset about. The best way to put it is that it's the way that it was marketed to us, the way alcohol came in and after Prohibition basically created, I'm going to butcher this word, an oligopoly. And kept all that money very centralized and power centralized, and then used deceptive marketing to do their product, and took the exact playbook that Big Alcohol did or Big Tobacco did. And the way we look at Big Tobacco ads are the same way our kids in 40 years are going to look at Big Alcohol ads. They did the exact same playbook to cheat, to deceive, to control power, and pitch these last few generations on alcohol, making us unbelievably sick. The cancer rates are through the roof. Almost all these things are preventable that we're all dying from. And so much of it is going to be tied back to alcohol, as the studies that they've been pushing for years and years under the table start coming out. And that's what I'm so very upset about. I don't expect anyone to put down their drink and go the way I went today. I just want people to wake up and be like, you didn't know what you didn't know. It's not your fault it was so ingrained in society. It's not your fault.
Sorry to interject, but have you seen those ads or those old, I've seen it on TikTok and stuff, those videos of people where they're like, oh, the government's forcing us to wear seatbelts, you know, and stuff. And it's like, they didn't know, you know, it's new, and you don't know that it's dangerous to not wear a seatbelt, and it's dangerous to do these kind of things. So yeah, I totally agree with you that it's like, as long as you're educated and as long as the information is not being suppressed and people are able to make their own informed decisions.
Yeah. And just not only was all that suppressed, but then the way they like deceitfully marketed everything. Like, it's coming out that they paid off the studies that say 1 glass of red wine is good for your heart. I used to send that to my husband when he would judge how much wine I was drinking.
So I used to use that stat because I have stroke in my family. So my mom's had a stroke. Her mom has had a stroke. It runs high risk. And I always thought, well, it was because there's clotting strokes, and then there's whatever the other opposite one is, but it's like hers was a clotting stroke. So I thought, oh, it thins the blood. It's supposed to actually reduce your stroke risk. Now, no, it doesn't. It's the opposite. And, but yeah, if I would have known, but I use that data to kind of inform and make it okay for me to go, yeah, it's a glass of wine. Like it's got good things in it and it's going to help reduce stroke. So that was definitely an excuse I had for my daily glass.
So like that deceitful marketing, then they also, it's not regulated on the risk scale because it's monitored by the DEA instead of the FDA. So we don't even, when they come out and say, oh, this is the most addictive drug, alcohol isn't even in that study.
And you're talking risk scale is schedule 1, 2, 3?
Oh, risk scale for like addictiveness and damage, like to yourself or others. I can probably find it and pull it up.
Which is probably a little bit of what they use to schedule different drugs.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. So you would think, your most addictive
and most dangerous. Harm. Yeah. Which is why it's so ironic that herb is up on schedule 1.
Yes.
Highly
caffeine is highly addictive, but way low on the like harm to self and others, right? Like there's definitely things with it, but it falls down here. Whereas alcohol, if you actually get to classify it, but they don't have to, therefore, when people don't hear it, they think it must not be bad. They don't look up and look where alcohol fell on that scale to find out why it wasn't. But so it's one of the most addictive products in our world, in our universe. And it's one of the highest, most damage to self and others.
Yeah.
If that fell, it would have to be, it's so far off past anything even on schedule 1. And it would have to go on there. And so just the way they're lying and deceit, and you have politicians in the pockets of it, but you have so much money and so much control that's all sitting right there in that circle that they can get almost anything done that they want to. And then knowing that it's that addictive, knowing alcohol changes your DNA. When you consume it, the way it interacts with your cells, it changes your DNA. I didn't know that. That's how cancer forms.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how much you drink or how much I drink. It's not our fault.
Yeah.
How our cells react to that alcohol.
And that's because alcohol turns into ethanol, right? And ethanol just damages.
It's the term, the cell that it turns into starts with an A. I did a podcast earlier this spring with, his name's Dr. Austin Baith, and he's also a state representative for the state of Iowa. And he's a primary care doctor, and he broke it down, like the actual chemical term and how it damages your DNA. And then also that they tried so hard, World Health Organization has officially come out and said no amount of alcohol is safe. Canada has said it. And in 2020, every scientist, every medical person with any grain of salt behind them was lobbying Congress to say, we need to say this, we need to say this. And that's when they changed the drink recommendations. They lowered it 1 drink, but that's all. So nobody really cared. But meanwhile, the reclassification comes up again in 2025.
Oh.
So with all that information that's out there and the way the public's changing, Congress can't not come out and say in 2025 that no amount of alcohol is safe. And that's where we're going to see what happened with cigarettes, where your lawsuits come piling on. Like it's about to come out the floodgates for alcohol. Wow. And I'm not telling you to not go buy Bud Light if you like Bud Light. It's that same generation that had to wake up one day and be like, well, oh shit, the cigarettes I'm 30 years into loving and socializing and living my life with. I have 2 choices. Do I choose my health and go forward, or do I stay in my bubble and ignore it? And I don't care which way you go. Whatever makes you more comfortable. So if anyone's saying like, how do you have a bar when that's your view on alcohol? Well, we also sell other drinks. We're selling the hemp drinks. Alcohol's not going to go away because we close our bars. People still need somewhere to go hang out, go have music. I just want everyone that walks through that door to have every single piece of education they can about every choice that's behind our bar.
Yeah.
And if they choose something besides alcohol, good for them. If they don't, I understand. You didn't know what you didn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of like my really holistic grand take on it.
I'm so glad you talked about that. You should share that more often because, yeah, me and Adam were just asking, like, we were out on a walk and we're like, I wonder if this ever comes up. And
Yeah.
So thanks for breaking that down. I don't know if you're a fan of, I was a big fan of I Love Lucy and like the old TV shows.
I never watched a lot of it.
Oh, it's classic. It holds up. Even now, you could watch an I Love Lucy episode and it's great. But yeah, I remember them talking about they just were required to light up in every scene because they were, Marlboro sponsored them. I think it was Marlboro, but yeah, so they just had to light up constantly. Real cigarettes, not the fake ones like they do in movies now. But yeah, and it's just so unfortunate that they didn't know, like these actors too that were exposed to that. And so yeah, it's just about getting information and being able to make the right choice.
Information is so hard to do. That's I honestly thought back in January, February when I was like, I'll do a podcast so other moms can hear this, right? Like this is information people need to know.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to find a way to let people know about you. And that is really hard to do. It's exhausting. And so you do I enjoy getting the information out there, right? But to constantly be like, okay, am I following this algorithm? Am I getting this piece out into the media stream that it'll push this? Am I linked to this? So I have email addresses in case they kick me off this platform because I said the technical term instead of gardening.
Yeah.
And then you just wake up to like how hard it is to get to mainstream. And I love my husband dearly. He still lives in that like mainstream life where he doesn't want to be aware to a lot of the things that I'm talking about and I'm passionate about because it's easier kind of not to. I'm also okay with that because it's a lot to take on once you start realizing how some of these things are.
Gosh.
And once you see one, then you kind of have to start seeing it all.
Oh gosh. And sometimes ignorance is bliss, right? First.
He's so happy.